Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host Armando Berry, and I'm here with the best team in the world, Michelle Brooks, Rachel Dickens, Connor Hibbett, and Justin Ballou. Let's start out with a recap of our men's basketball team's recent game last night against UTSA. The Mean Green left San Antonio with their 15th win in a row, 59-48. Michelle, I want to start with you on this one. Is this the Mean Green's greatest season ever?
Well, it certainly feels like it the way they've been playing. I mean, we're the only team in the country that's undefeated on the road right now. That just feels good to say in itself. We're definitely a basketball school. But to be playing this well in conference play throughout the entire conference, or throughout the entire season, has been really huge. And I mean, it might be the best conference team so far. I think it could be the best team we've seen come out of UNT. So as we follow, the tournament.
I mean, I kind of want to see what happens in the postseason before I say we're the best. I mean, we had a few really nice teams in the 80s last year. We had our first win in postseason. So I'd like to see what happens before. But as of right now, at least regular season-wise, it's really, really good. And it's really hard to say they aren't even top of the conference. I mean, if they get another win, they win out and have the most wins over any other team in this conference.
With only 6 returners, that's really huge. And the starting lineup hasn't changed this entire season. Who can say that as well? I mean, this team this season is unstoppable.
It's definitely the best regular season ever, definitely. Absolutely. Most wins in conference play ever. Longest winning streak for UNT ever, only undefeated team on the road. That is incredible, and especially with how much we lost last season. Last season, though, looking back on it with how it finished, I think is still your best overall season ever. That team in the postseason was not supposed to do what it did. They lost their final 2 games at home to UAB and fell to 3rd in the division instead of winning the division in that series. And then they win 4 games in 4 straight days in that tournament, including beating La Tech and Western, and then upset Purdue in March Madness. So I just think looking back on last season, so many upsets along the way, a team that was going into the conference tournament kind of with their heads hanging low after those 2 UAB losses. They got it together at the perfect time, and that was a magical run. That being said, I think if UNT goes to the round of 32 or farther in the tournament this year, that would make it the best season. But given how far we went, that was our farthest ever going in March Madness before last season, so I think that still makes it the best.
When you think of teams like UMBC, Norfolk State, Florida Gulf Coast, you think about what they did in the NCAA tournament. You don't remember a thing that they did during the regular season, except for maybe if they had a special run through their conference tournament, but technically that's March as well. So for UNT to have their successful run that they had last year in the postseason, that's what they're remembered for. That's what we, as a school nationwide, are remembered for. So yes, like Justin said, the regular season has been fantastic, but if you don't finish off what has been a really historic season so far, it's kind of hard to compare the two because you're comparing apples to oranges, really, if they don't have the successful run in March Madness like they did last year.
So it's extremely plausible is what we're saying. It's extremely plausible for you guys to agree with me eventually.
Yeah, with the ceiling for this team definitely could be higher than last year's team because we have more go-to players this year. Last year it was like
everyone knows
Hamlin,
their
everybody
role
else.
on this team, and they work so well together. You're right. We were talking about Javion Hamlet. He was the motor for this team, and when they didn't have him, it wasn't great. We'd look at Tyler Perry in some games. He doesn't score a whole lot of points, but then he comes in and does that clutch 3, or the other guys pick up the slack. So that's the difference between this team and last year's team. Everyone comes in and picks up the slack.
Right. Even when Perry doesn't have a terrific game, someone else is going to, like you said, Michelle, pick up the slack, and we can still win on the road, even playing ugly kind of basketball, which goes a lot to say how deep the team is this season.
Which is why the ceiling this season is higher, because you have a bunch of reliable guys. You can rely on anyone. Tyler Perry's your 6th man, for crying out loud. I mean, the roster is stacked this season. Everyone knows everyone knows their role. Everyone can step up whenever they need to. So it's going to be a good tournament run. I already feel it.
So I think this season is in competition with the 09-10 season when they had a really good regular season last time, similar to this one, and then they lost in the NCAA tournament. And then last year we actually got an NCAA tournament win. Legacies are made in the postseason, but Michelle, you're not wrong.
Thank you, Armando. That's all that I needed to hear.
But moving on, Justin, what do you think it was the most key win this season? It was a lot of wins.
A lot of key wins. I mean, the one that really sticks out to me, I mean, you have obviously the 2 La Tech wins, the UAB win. I think the turning point for this team this season was that Drake game back in November. This was at the ESPN Events Invitational Tournament, and it was their 3rd game. They had lost their previous 2 games to Kansas and Miami. That Miami game would have been a quad 2 win, so that kind of hurt them too. But that, I think, was just the turning point, because you play 3 games in 3 days. You lose the first first two. It's easy to go into that last game kind of with your head hanging low. They played a really good Drake team, a team that may even be an at-large out of the Missouri Valley Conference this season. Played them really well. I think they won by 3 points in that game, and I just think it gave them some momentum for the rest of non-conference play, and then obviously going into conference play as well. So I thought that was the turning point. But I mean, wins at Wichita State, the Middle Tennessee was a big win at home, 2 against La Tech, UAB. I mean, tons of big wins, but that's the one that really sticks out as like the turning point for me.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more about some of the bad losses that we had.
Buffalo, in my opinion. With Miami, Kansas, those are not bad losses. UAB, even though it's at home, not a bad loss at all. It's not a terrible loss. But the Buffalo game at home, now, Buffalo could not miss in those last few minutes. It was really, really frustrating. It's like they could throw a shot behind their back and make it. But that's been the one loss this season that's kind of been the thing
It's
that kind of
gonna
pull
stick
you
with
into
us.
yeah, and it's kind of hurt our net rankings in the long term. You can't have those losses, especially at home, because home and away games matter, or they weigh differently. And so because you lost at home to a quad 3 loss,
Something like that, yeah.
yeah, so it's not going to stick well with your resume for the long term, and that's what's going to hurt us for a possible at-large bid.
No, Buffalo isn't a bad team though, and I said this at the time that we lost the game. I'm really not surprised that they lost this game because this was a brand new roster. This was their second game of the season. They had played like Oklahoma Christian in that first game, so this was a pretty good opponent.
And Buffalo brought back everybody too.
Right, I mean Buffalo stacked roster, top of the MAC right now. Really good team, and I just think they're trying to learn how to play together, and Buffalo is just more physical, taller, bigger, and I just think it makes sense that they lost
Well,
that
you can
game.
look at any team in the NCAA, though, and look at those preseason games. These are all completely different teams now than they were then. But the fact that, UNT hung in with Kansas, they lost by 10 points, so that really helps too, I guess, the case. But I don't have a key loss, guys, but I do have kind of a random key win. I don't know how y'all are going to feel about it, but it's that win over FAU just a few weeks ago on February 17th. It was easily could have been an upset that we don't want, but kind of need. It could have been that upset that you were talking about last week, Justin. So, but the fact that they pulled it out 54-51 was huge because it was away.
I think that loss to Buffalo, you guys mentioned, but I think that loss may be bad on the record, but I think it's good because it showed that we weren't perfect and it showed the flaws that we did have. But I think the key win this year that proved that we are legitimate is the UAB win on the road. You're going into an undefeated host with them, and you just saw them with Perry in the last minute hitting 2 very clutch threes, leaving 2 seconds on the clock for them to answer. I think that UAB game set us up to be legitimate and set us up to win the conference.
And both those games you guys mentioned, FAU had, a 10-game home winning streak coming into that game?
Yeah.
UAB is another team that doesn't lose at home. They do those back-to-back games, Thursday, Saturday in the same week, 2 incredible wins. That week of the season just sticks out for sure.
Yeah, and that FAU team is 3rd in the East. It could have
And they could have
easily-
looked ahead to UAB during it. Yeah, it seems like it's almost like a game you're meant to lose to kind of have that setback, and then you get back on the
But
track.
also, I feel like that could have been that was a focus moment for this UNT team as well. You're that close to losing that game that you don't want to break this, record that we have. So I feel like that was so key. It shook their confidence in all the right ways.
And that 4-game stretch at FAU, UAB, Southern Miss, and then La Tech, that was what determined the season. They go undefeated, obviously, through those games. So FAU was the turning point for this latest winning streak, at least.
And just real quick to touch on the long term that you brought up a little earlier in the show. What do you think that the impact of this year's run, the past couple years, will do for the Mean Green as far as recruitment, fans, and
the fan base is building. We're building something with the fan base, but the recruiting's just
yeah.
the recruiting's going to be insane, and I'm so excited for this. We talked about Tyler Perry a little bit before. He was a guy that before we even went out and got him from JUCO was dreaming about playing at North Texas, and you're going to start seeing that now with mid-major success, going to March Madness every year. Recruits see that, and guys that aren't just below that Power 5 level will see that and want to be here. So it was great to hear that Tyler Perry had been dreaming to play here because we've been dreaming to have a guy like him after Javian Hamlet anyway. Right. So the recruiting is going to continue to build. The fan base is coming next year, so this is going to be something special.
And the transfer portal can be such a benefit to a school like a UNT because you can get a player who may not get a lot of playing time somewhere else. He could transfer over here maybe for a roster. If you're in need of a certain player for your roster, he can fill in and play significant time and have a significant impact as what we've seen with Tyler Perry this year. So the transfer portal can be beneficial to teams like UNT.
You also see players like Javion Hamlet, you guys mentioned. He's now in the G League, and you're seeing these players go pro, even in Europe. And seeing that can actually make people actually want to come to schools like UNT. most people are like, oh, I want to go to a Power 5 just for the legitimacy, for the visibility. But with UNT, you're able to see that this year. That's something just you weren't able to see in the past years.
Absolutely. Now we've broken down the men. Let's take a closer look at the women's season right after the break. Sticking around on Mean Green Game Day, we're about to take a look back on our women's team's season. They're currently sitting at 15-11 after a nail-biter win, 53-51 last night at the Super Pit over the Lady Roadrunners. Looking back to how we got here, what was the season's turning point, Connor?
Oh, the 6 or the 7-game winning streak certainly was the difference. This was a team that before was kind of inconsistent. When they would go on a losing streak of a couple games, it was hard to get their season turned around. They would come home and they'd play like a Rice, they'd beat them, and then they'd get them with a different kind of mindset, positive kind of mindset that would help for the future. But when they got that several-game winning streak, it really just turned their season around, because even when they were losing late in games, it's like they had that confidence that they'll find a way to pull it out. That's what we saw last night when they were down by 5 with 3 minutes. They just stuck through it.
Well, and it was the game that started that 7-game win streak that you're talking about, Connor, was at UTSA. UNT blew them out 70-57 last night. I mean, UTSA has already seen you, that they know that you're a good team. You just got upset last week. You weren't really supposed to lose. So I think that was the key turning point for this team. They finally found their rhythm. They were starting to work together. The beginning of the game last night, everyone had a role. They were running their systems. It was probably the best I've seen this team play collectively. The problem now being you just have to play a whole entire game. We've seen them develop into a better team and start doing this, but now it's the fear of them falling back into something because of a momentum shake.
So if that UTSA type of game had happened earlier this season, do you think they would have been able to come back from that 5-point deficit that late in the game? Because I feel like their mentality is different now.
I do agree. I think that they're a better team now, and I don't know that they would have been able to come back and put everything together, but it's the fact that they put themselves in that situation that you do not want to put yourself in a situation like that with a team that has 3 wins on the season.
I would say on that game, at the end of the game, there was a very important defensive move with the turnover on the possession, and that ended up leading to a UNT victory. And I don't think without that defense that we've been able to establish since that 7-game streak, I don't think we'd be able to be the team we are.
Well, and courtesy to Kelby Jones, because he really instills the defensive side of things in this team. When they would full court press last night, they would jump the passes nonstop. They played really well in trapping right there at the half court. So, I mean, it's working, and they know what to do and how to get things to work. Yesterday, I was talking to Jaylee Mitchell before the game, and she said, all week, I was telling the girls, we're successful when we are best when, and that's what she's been feeding her team. The culture's really good right now. Kind of a scary loss or scary win yesterday, but maybe what they need to continue going into a UTEP game that they need to win.
Yeah, I thought there were 2 games this season where I thought the season turned. The first one was that Wichita State game that I mentioned on the last show, because they lose that game. They ended up going 12 days because of some COVID cancellations. They go 12 days and they play Baylor, lose at Baylor. Then they go 11 days before opening up conference play against Middle Tennessee, who's one of the best teams in conference. So I think at the start of conference play, they're really just trying to get their feet back under them, trying to get back into the swing of the season. And I thought for the better, things turned on that Southern Miss game, January 27th. I thought that was the first real group effort that we saw them play. Really good Southern Miss team, too, on the other side. And we see now how big that win was now because they get the head-to-head tiebreaker now over Southern Miss. So that was a big win, I thought. And that they won 6 out of 8 games, too, after that game. So
When Gomez shoots well from the outside, they seem unbeatable.
No, seriously, and even last night, it's the stroke of her shot. You can see it when she's feeling herself. It's immediate. And so to see her play well these past few games is huge. You know, she had that injury a few weeks ago. But we started to see her more consistently being a big part of this team again. Now, Quincy Noble, we have to talk about Quincy Noble all the time. She had a big game last night, really contributed. She was really hot to start, feeling herself once again, just like Ali Gomez. So key for her to continue this play. I know we say that every single week, but last night she seemed a little bit different in the right way.
I mean, if you compare this team to the men's team from last year, they relied on one person. They relied on Hamlet. The girls are in the same way, that mentality of if Noble's not doing well, they're not going to do well. They've kind of broken that up with a few of these games when Noble hasn't done well, but overall that's kind of been the theme of the season. If Noble's not shooting double digits, if not more.
See, I disagree with that statement
I feel
completely.
like that's changed a lot over the
Yeah,
past couple games.
I think if you look at this team last season when Quincy Noble maybe wasn't having the best game, it took a little bit more for the rest of the team to step up. And I think this season you look at someone like Jazzion Jackson who hasn't missed a beat this entire season. I mean, she comes in, she steps up. We've seen a lot of other girls come in and step up. Maddie Townley had a huge game last night. She knows to make it count when she's in. Amber Dixon knows the kind of defense that she thrives best against offensively. She comes in and does it, works well. She had 20 points. She's had a couple 20-point games this season. So I disagree with that statement. I think, and that's what makes this team better now, is that you've seen them finally start to step up. Now, earlier this season, Quincy Noble wouldn't have a few games that were very good, and maybe we would struggle, but this team is completely different now.
And with that being said, what do y'all think are some of the losses that they need to look back at and can really learn from, or they have learned from this season?
Well, I think the first one was that UT Arlington. That was kind of like a random loss. I believe that was a home game, too. Wichita State kind of sticks out. They lost to La Tech twice, too, which really hurt for the division. And UTEP, too, on the road was another sort of weird loss. They've had a kind of a roller coaster of a season in terms of who they've beaten, who they've lost to, but a couple good wins, too, UAB and Southern Miss. So.
That UAB game was, another key win, too. I agree, Justin. I think it's all about where this team will land now. You didn't want to lose to Louisiana Tech twice, obviously, but there's still a chance that they are the Western Division champs if Louisiana Tech loses to a good UAB team. That's going to be a game to watch tomorrow. Make sure you turn it on. And UNT wins out tomorrow against UTEP. This UNT team could very well be the 1 seed in the West and a Western Division title. So that would be really, really cool for this entire school, is all I'm saying.
But that's the thing is, looking at the bracket, it may actually be better if the women finish second, though, because they played Charlotte a lot tougher. They lost by like 30 to Middle Tennessee, only 5 points to Charlotte. And the 2 seed in the West plays the 1 seed in the East in the semifinal, versus if we won the division and then had to play Middle as that 2 seed. I think it's actually better for the tournament if they get that 2 seed.
Well, and it's better for the team in general is if they get a 1 or a 2 seed, because they're going to have a double bye.
Yep.
We haven't seen this team win the first game in a conference tournament in I don't know how long. And so to kind of get them out of that jittery mindset a little bit ahead, maybe they can see these games that the teams are playing, see how these other teams are playing, and see who their opponents are going to be in the tournament, because teams play really different this time of year, especially in a tournament.
I'm a little worried about one of our starters right now. Mallard's hasn't really been doing very well, at least last few weeks. I'd like to see Lampkin maybe do a little more for the height advantage.
Foul trouble for this team right now. They got to learn to be a little bit more careful defensively, and last night they seemed to get that towards the end of the game. So.
Those last few stops were incredible. Shot clock violations. It was shut down defense, because the offense really wasn't playing tremendous in that second half. So
no, and they would force UTSA to turn the ball over on themselves time and time again, and the officiating was not great. There were a lot of ticky-tack fouls being called, but UNT, that defense, I mean, they held them. They made them hit that shot clock quite a few times, make a bad pass, force it out of bounds, or just take a bad shot.
And after splitting these last 2 games, where do you think this point of their where they are right now leaves them going into this last game right before they start the CUSA tourney?
Well, the thing is, and I was saying, I spoke with Jayla Mitchell yesterday, and she says that we are not a look-ahead team. They never have been, and I hope that they shouldn't start to do that now. I think key right now is just focus on this UTEP game tomorrow, because we know that this team is all about momentum. They need to put all of it into that one thing to start off, and then we'll see where they land. Obviously, like I just said, you want them to get that 1 or 2 seed, so they have that double bye. It's probably in their best interest. But looking ahead right now, you got to beat a UTEP team that's already beat you.
I would also, in this scenario, not worry about the other teams. Like she said, you can only do what you can do, and if you can at least win this UTSA game, you're going into the conference tournament with momentum and the pace of this team on your side, and just getting this girls team back into a winning streak and getting that confidence has always been one of their biggest things.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was an incredible game last night because I really thought if UNT had lost that game, that would have set us way back. And I'm not sure what our mentality would have been going into the UTEP game, into the conference tournament. But I'm glad that they were able to turn things around because I think, like I said earlier in the show, the mentality of this team is just different. The mental toughness is really turned around, which is awesome to see because really mental toughness can bring out the best in the physical part of the game as well.
We've seen a lot of big man play, too, out of this team, which has been really nice. Maddie Townley, Jalen Mallard, she seemed to like she was getting frustrated. It was just that foul, I think, that was getting in her head. But I mean, this team has really developed down low in recent games, and it's making them really strong on the inside, hard to beat defensively and offensively.
Absolutely. Now that we looked at some of these mean green W's, we're going to discuss some of the biggest L's in college basketball when we come back. Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Armando Berry, here with Connor Hibbett, Justin Ballou, Michelle Brooks, and Rachel Dickens. As much as we try as humans to win them all, we lose sometimes, even when we're the best. But when the best fall short at the same time, it raises an eyebrow that we have to look into. Now, with that being said, 7 of the top 10 teams on the men's side lost last Saturday, and they were all on the road, which also makes us the last undefeated team.
Yeah. Should we all say thank you really quick to all of these teams?
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Thank you,
Thank you, St.
everyone,
Mary's, yeah.
for being upset.
These teams were Gonzaga, Arizona, Auburn, Purdue, Kansas, Kentucky, and Tech. Michelle, I'll go with you. What do you think was the best upset?
The best upset. Ooh, Colorado over Arizona. I mean, props to Colorado. Worst loss, I think, for Arizona yet, but it shook their confidence. You saw them come back, beat a really good USC team this week. So, I don't know. I got to go with Colorado over Arizona. There's something about, playing, you go from sea level to the mountains, and it gets in your head. Arizona shouldn't have lost that game. You play that game 100 times over. I guarantee you they win it every time. But for Colorado, huge.
I mean, I feel like in this game, if you look at the Arizona game, it kind of reminds me of that Virginia game against UMBC a few years ago in the tournament. I mean, UMBC beat them by 20, and that was a #1 seed overall. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but I mean, Arizona does already have the conference signed up. They already are going to win it. So, I mean, I guess if you're going to lose, you'd rather see them lose now than in the tournament.
In Arizona's case, this was the worst loss by a top 2 team against an unranked opponent since the 2018 NCAA tournament. Yep.
And that was the first top 10 win for Colorado since 1992. But that Arizona loss, I think just goes to say Arizona was looking ahead to USC, who they ended up beating. They were winning by 35. They were winning by 35 at USC in front of 10,000 people. They ended up winning by about 20. But this Arizona team is legit. They've got a few pro players in that team. They have the best ball screen action in the country right now. They're playing at a different level. I said this on the show last week. I still love this team. I think they'll make the Final Four. I think it'll be their first Final Four in about 20 years. But this team is legit. It was kind of a random loss, especially in how they lost it and how decisively they did. And like Rachel, you brought up the UMBC-Virginia game. That's been the only time a 16 seed has beaten the 1 seed in the NCAA tournament history, and of course they won by that game by a lot.
Yeah,
So
Colorado's the 5th best team in the Pac-12, and they had just lost to Arizona State by 17 points in the game before that. Arizona was playing some of their best ball, like you said. They had 9 straight wins coming into that game. Got back on track, but dang, the Buffaloes dominated that game. Arizona was up 37-32 at halftime. The Buffaloes won the second half 47-26 by 21 points in that second half. They held Benedict Mathurin, Arizona's best scorer, to 12 points, 3 of 11 shooting in that game. Held Arizona to 5 of 18 from downtown. So Colorado, incredible second half, got up to a big lead, and then didn't allow Arizona to shoot the 3 ball. That's a recipe for success. So big win for Colorado.
And including Villanova's loss the previous Thursday when they lost to UConn, 8 of the top 10 lost last week. And most of those losses, like all of them happen on the road, but you look at like Kansas losing at Baylor, Tech losing at TCU. Yeah, Baylor, yeah.
I like it.
But yeah, the Tech lost to TCU. Like, those are okay losses. The Big 12 is loaded. We've discussed that on the show many times. But when you lose on the road to a pretty good team, it's like, okay, well, that's not shocking. Road games are really difficult in college basketball. Only one team is undefeated, UNT. But, yeah, another shout-out for us. But like, the Colorado loss just kind of seemed random compared to the other games.
Yeah, but it's just like,
think that was
it's
a
that
fluke
loss
loss?
that
Yeah.
shakes your confidence. It just shakes your confidence, and they went and they turned back around and handled USC.
So we all agreed that Colorado would be the fluke loss out of the
Absolutely.
out of
Yeah.
last
Yeah,
week.
Arizona deserves to be a top-ranked team.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
deserve
yeah.
to be a 1 seed. Like you said, their offense is incredible to watch. They incorporate so much ball movement and off-ball movement is what I really like, the backdoor cuts and all that. They're the best passing team I think I've ever seen. They hit those tight windows like nobody's business, and like you said, I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with, probably Final Four bound in the end.
Like Villanova 4 years ago, they could shoot so well, and this Arizona team can pass so well. There's just, when you see a team offensively that's just levels ahead of everybody else, it's just really exciting to watch. Yeah, I throw back to another team from several years ago, but I like doing that. But this Arizona team is just so much fun to watch. They're just incredibly efficient offensively.
And which team did not need this loss going into Chan Week and March Madness coming up soon?
I think Purdue. Purdue lost the Big Ten. They aren't going to be able to win outright. That's Wisconsin. And I mean, honestly, they don't have the defense to protect them. So, I mean, in the end, I think Purdue's going to ultimately feel this the most.
It wasn't a good loss for Purdue. They're ranked 99 right now in defensive efficiency as well. I mean, UNT's sitting at 18. Like,
That's not a 99 rating, that's a 99 in efficiency, so that's not that good.
I guess.
yeah.
But yeah, we know what it's like to beat Purdue. Sorry, Purdue. Wait, no, I'm not really sorry.
But
But
take that the Purdue is Purdue's looking pretty good right
exactly.
Purdue's
The
getting
Purdue-
upset again in the tournament. You cannot go into March Madness 99th in defense and go to the
Yeah.
Final
Michigan
Four.
State had lost 5 of their last 6 games going into that.
Well, and here's the problem. The Big Ten is a little bit overrated. They're going to take 9 teams from the Big Ten.
The
and
Mid-Ten.
It is going to screw over UNT. It's gonna mess up UNT's chances. You look, they say Rutgers is on the bubble. Well, they lost to Lafayette. Michigan lost to Iowa last night, 82-71. We weren't supposed to beat Purdue, and then we only have their 6 returners. Like, it's
Michelle,
I'm heated. I don't like the way it's set up.
Michelle, I think you should write a strongly worded letter.
Yes, I should, to the NCAA, because the Big Ten is going to hurt schools from smaller conferences that definitely deserve to get in. One could be UNT if they don't win out.
And real quick,
Purdue's defense is a problem, though. We saw them give up 2-game winners this week to Michigan State and Wisconsin. I think they're going to get upset again this year.
Wisconsin banked in both those 3.
That's true.
There should be a rule in college basketball and in the NBA. You have to call bank from the perimeter if you were going to make it.
And real quick, which of these teams do you think will most likely be upset again in the tournament?
I think it's Purdue, obviously.
One
Well,
of
I
the
think
fakers?
the team that I think has actually hurt the most is Kansas. Well, outside of Purdue, because they're going to win the Big 12, and now Baylor is in first and controlling their own destiny. They only play Iowa State, and Kansas still has to play Texas. So that loss actually hurts Kansas, even though it won't drop them in the rankings too
Sounds
much.
great to me.
Purdue seems like the most likely to get upset because the other teams seem to turn it on when they have to. I haven't seen that from Purdue. They're not a balanced team like the other teams are.
Right.
I think right now 2 teams you got to be really worried for, at least on the road. They haven't been very good. Is you got to look at Texas Tech and Auburn. Both these 2 schools are incredible at home, but March Madness is not at home. It's neutral sites. And I mean, Texas Tech's lost to Oklahoma and they lost to TCU, both teams that are both on the bubble and are probably not going to make it in as of right now. But then, I mean, you got to look at Auburn. If you look at some of their road victories, they're barely victories. They only beat Missouri by 1, and I mean, Missouri's really not that good.
And they just beat Mississippi State a couple nights ago in overtime, so that was not that impressive of a performance.
I think you'll see this Texas Tech team, get in and everything. But yeah, that TCU upset was huge, and now you kind of see them. They barely beat, a K-State team the other night. So their confidence just seems a little shaken after this loss.
Absolutely. Let's dive back into CUSA and give out our participation trophies and gold stars when we come back. Thanks for sticking around. The regular season is coming to a close very soon. Sad face. So it's time for us to give out our Mean Green Game Day CUSA Season Awards. And we're going to start with the women's side. Let's start with who we think is going to be the MVP.
Walking bucket, Maral Abdelgawad, the Western Kentucky guard. She is top 20 in the nation, leading Conference USA with 20 points a game. She's 54% from the field, 34% from 3. she gets 7 rebounds a game as a guard. She's got really impressive numbers. And Western, when you watch them, they run a lot of small ball lineups with their girls, a lot of guards running around. She's the one that sticks out. And she's really the leader of that pack. They all turn to her. She's the reason that Western is where they are. And I think Western's a little bit better than their record shows because of her. And I think they're a team to be reckoned with in the tournament because of Morel Abdul-Gawad.
Okay, I'm going to go with Zakiya Weathersby. It's hard to weather that storm down low. Yeah, she's very, very physical.
I didn't have a pun for Morel Abdul-Gawad, but you hit it on there.
But yeah, she's really, really physical down low. She's a walking double-double. She's able to rebound almost over anybody, offensively, defensively. She's almost impossible to stop. Her physicality is really unmatched, and for anybody trying to face her, good luck.
Well, yeah, she's a 6'2" center. I agree, Connor. I mean, she leads the conference in rebound. She's averaging 11.3 per game, 56% from the field. She can't miss inside. And she has she's second in CUSA in blocks, 55 on the season. She's aggressive offensively and defensively, and that's what makes her such a versatile player.
I'm going to go back to the East. I got to go with Octavia Jett-Wilson. She's jet the Charlotte team into first place. She leads.
What are we doing?
I have to work on my puns now.
Thank you for being punny. Thank you.
She leads the team with about 19, and she's just really helped the other players around her get better. I mean, it's not just necessarily her, but she's helped Michaela Boykin end up being who she's been today. And I think with her and the other team players, she just makes them better when she's on the court.
Absolutely. Now let's take a look at who do you think is going to be the most improved for this year?
Can I take this one away really quick?
Oh yeah,
because
those animosities earlier.
I have something to say right now. Don't get me wrong, Morel Abdul-Gawad is a fantastic player, very valuable, but she is the most improved by far, Justin, most improved by far. She was averaging, 10 points per game last season? She's averaging 20 now. She's doubled her scoring. She is up by 10 points in field goal percentage. She's 54% from the field. That's awesome. She's up in three-point percentage, 25 to 35%, and her free throw percentage is up 6 points. She's averaging 1 foul less a game. That is a player who went in the offseason, looked at her film, saw the way that she was playing, saw her stats, and said, you know what, I want to get better. I want to contribute to this team more, and that's what she did. She went and improved her game, so much so that she is twice the player that she was then now.
You sold me with the look away and the one last foul.
Yeah, I mean.
Another player that's really improved a lot has been Lahr Roberson from Louisiana Tech. She's been on fire the last few weeks. She cannot miss. She had 44 points in the double overtime victory against Rice a week ago. She had 31 last night. She cannot be stopped right now. And what's up with all the Robersons and the Robertsons for Louisiana Tech? She's actually from Ruston, and she's only a sophomore, so she's definitely a player to look for in the future. Louisiana Tech as well as a team as well. They're a young team, so really looking forward to seeing what the Texters can do in the future.
It's really huge because they're a young team, but they're a really, really good team, and she's been someone that's really key to this team inside. She's super aggressive.
Only three
likes
games
to
all
get hammered.
season. Only 3 games all season she has not scored in double figures. 2 against Power 5 opponents early in the season in the non-conference, and then 1 against us.
Yeah, no, she is by far one of the strongest players in this conference. She makes a difference for this Louisiana Tech team, and she's young. I mean, it's huge. This team can grow into a powerhouse in this conference for quite a couple seasons now.
Well, we're talking about improvements. You got to talk about Charlotte because Charlotte has taken some really big steps this year. Definitely the most improved team in CUSA. They went 10-12 last year, 9-5 in conference. Now they're on top of the East, 18-9, and 14-3 in conference play this season. I think a big reason for that is Michaela Boykin, who you mentioned, Rachel. I don't know if she qualifies for this award because she only played 2 games last year and then she got injured. But this year she's back. She's fully healthy. She's averaging 13 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shoots 40% from the field. So I really think she, with Octavia Jett-Wilson, those two have formed a really nice duo for the Niners. And now they're leading the East above a good Middle Tennessee team too, I should mention. So impressive stuff, and shout out the 49ers for their improvements this year.
Also, you mentioned Middle Tennessee. I'm going to go to Middle Tennessee for the most improved player. She's a transfer player from VCU. She didn't play last year due to the obvious NCAA rules. She ended up when she was there, though, she ended up with 4 points a game. She now leads this at VCU. She now leads this Tennessee team with 13 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. She hits 40%. 46% from the field. She's honestly just the player to watch in that team. It's very scary to see what their international players on that team have been able to do.
And for the, and I was gonna say,
No, you're good. Take it away, Armando.
and for the, I'll throw it back to you, Michelle. For the men's side, who's your MVP?
All right, well, my MVP has to be
Your
clutch time Tyler Perry. It's too easy not to pick him. I mean, he has been the value on this court, whether he's only scored a few points and then he comes and makes a buzzer beater over Louisiana Tech in Ruston. He has just been unstoppable. He's the sixth man on the court for this team. He comes from a community college where he leads the conference and then immediately steps in here and just makes it the impact almost every single game. Not only that, but he is personable. He's a fun player to be around. He brings good culture to this program, and he's the future of this program.
I'm going to disagree. I think you have to look at the second best team. I think UAB, it's horrible to say this, but with Jordan Walker, he's been able to do some incredible things this year. I mean, he's definitely got a big case, though, with beating UNT and Lahr Tech on the road and leading his team to victory in both those games. He leads his team with 19 points per game. And it's honestly just incredible just to see what he's been able to do. I know that they haven't been able to, they've had a few games where you're like, what is happening? But I mean, when he is on fire, his team follows him in that way.
He is a really strong player in this conference. I mean, they call him Jordan Jelly Walker, and that's because he gets things going. He's a leader on this team. He keeps his team focused. He set a single game scoring record with 42 points against a UAB team. For UAB. So, I mean, he's a huge threat in this conference, huge player, someone to watch, keep your eyes out for, but still.
But nobody
I know you guys agree.
Nobody is more clutch than Tyler Perry. I mean,
That's
this
right.
award, this isn't the best player in conference. This is the most valuable player. Like you said, Tyler Perry is the sixth man on this team. He's getting 14 points a game and shooting 45% off the from the field off the bench. One of the leading bench scorers in the entire nation. He's the heart and soul of this team now. Just kind of stepped in and took that role over for Javian Hamlet last year, and he is the future. And he's Mr. President, and we're excited to see what he's got here from now on.
Yeah, so you have like the Mr. October in baseball, and then you got Mr. Clutch in basketball with Tyler Perry. But yeah, I've enjoyed watching this kid all season long. He has been one of the biggest contributors really in the country. If you look at the transfers, the transfer portal is becoming such a big thing in college sports, and Tyler Perry really fits that role of your typical big-time transfer player. And Tyler Perry's been Mr. Clutch. He's hit late shots against UAB, Louisiana Tech, both on the road and at home. But this guy is definitely a guy that you can have the ball in his hands late in the game when you need a shot. So really enjoyed watching him, and of course, obviously UNT basketball. So
Okay, I was saying, Connor, who do you think has improved the most this season that you've seen?
I'm gonna go with another UNT player. Surprise, surprise, Abu Osman.
What a homer!
When we lost Simmons from last year, I wasn't sure how we were going. Like Simmons had the experience. Sometimes he could be a little soft down low. He wasn't the most consistent player, but it was a question mark throughout the offseason who was going to fit that role. And Usman has not only fit that role, he's played better in my opinion. His ceiling's incredible, an incredible athlete. His work ethic is even better. Really looking forward to seeing what he does throughout the rest of this season and in the future for his Mean Green career.
Yeah, I mean, only averaging 2.9 points per game last season and 7 minutes per game, and now he's averaging at least 10, and he's playing anywhere from 15 to 35 minutes. It's not just his stats on paper, though. It's his physicality. When you look at him, he looks like a completely different player than he did when he started at UNT, and that's someone who works so hard. He loves the game of basketball. He wants to be good at it, and day out, he's in the gym. It's gone to show his last 4 showings have been extremely great showings from him. Offensively, you can tell he's got his touch. He's feeling himself. The development out of this kid is insane, and Grant McCaslin will talk about it all day. I mean, coaches come up to him and say, what happened to him? Where'd he come from? Because he's a different player now than he was last year. That's improvement.
He's also constantly improving. I mean, you've seen him at least trying to help at least on the free throw side. I mean, he has been pretty bad, and he's finally kind of started to work on that. And you can tell at least that it's made some of a difference in some of these games. But I mean, he makes it in the biggest games too. I mean, on the Lahr Tech game at home, it's the game to win conference. He shoots 13 points. He has a block. He's got 7 rebounds. He just is leading this team anywhere he needs to.
What I really like about Abu is that they're good at finding mismatches with him. We play a lot of small ball teams like Lahr Tech, UTEP's pretty small ball that they're playing tomorrow. They always find a way to get him on a mismatch because there always seems to be a guy that's shorter than Thomas Bell or Abu, and they'll get Abu on him. They always find the mismatch, and that's what I really like. As far as most improved player, though, I'm going to go with Davian McKnight from Western. We talked about how much Western lost this year. Tavian Hollingsworth graduated, Charles Bassey now in the NBA. a lot more is going to fall on McKnight. He only played 25 minutes per game last year. Now he's playing 35. His scoring, just his overall games improved. He went from 6 points a game last year to 16 this year. He increased his field goal percentage from 38% to 48%, doubled his three-point percentage from 18% to 36%. And I just think he makes Western a scary team to play in the tournament. He's now stepping up into that Hollingsworth sort of point guard, lead the team kind of role. And I just think, well, I mean, look at these highlights. He's incredible. And I think he makes the toppers scary in the tournament.
And something that Justin said like a month ago, Western Kentucky would start playing better, and that's what they've been doing. So yeah, scary team to face, especially with him leading the charge.
Yeah, when teams start to get better this late and they start to get on those runs this late, it's not, it's scary.
Michelle, real quick, what was your favorite upset of the year in CUSA?
My favorite upset throughout the entire CUSA?
Yeah, men or women, real quick.
Ooh, okay. I think we all have the same one, isn't it? It's Marshall beating UAB. I mean, I think that kind of shook the entire conference, and it was I know, Rachel, I know you have some points on this one.
I mean, Marshall's the last team in the East. You have UAB, who is the second top team, at least in the conference. You got to look at Marshall. They had 4 players in double digits in this game. UAB only had 3, but I mean, the shooting from Marshall is really what made the difference in this game. In that second half, the UAB was really unable to answer these points, and it was very critical for the Marshall to get this win. Not for them necessarily now, but in the future, they can be like, look, we beat a team that's really good, and we can do it. We just need to do it consistently.
Marshall isn't as bad as their record indicates either. They've been in a ton of close games and have gotten unlucky, but this was crazy. And UAB lost at Rice too, right after they beat North Texas. So they've just been playing down in competition, but that's the one. First win for Marshall in Conference USA play this season over UAB.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of all teams to get the first victory.
That's crazy.
Now that our little award show is over, we're going to preview the last regular season games left next.
Making is, in essence, telling a story.
Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Armando Berry. Beside me, Michelle Brooks, Rachel Dickens, Connor Hibbett, and Justin Ballou. Both teams have 1 game left against UTEP's men's and women's teams, with the men traveling on the road to El Paso and the women staying home at the Super Pit. Starting with the women, Justin, I'm going to go to you on this one. Is this one a must-win for them, considering how tight everything is?
It is. I mean, it's senior night. You have all the momentum on your side, it seems like. Going against a UTEP team that you lost to the first time. Senior day, you're going for potential championship, a double bye against a team that you have to beat, you need to beat. I think they're going to come ready to go. And keep in mind, the first time they played at UTEP, it was that first game of that 3-game and 5-night road trip. So I just think they might have been looking ahead, like trying to figure out what was going on during the week and what they were going to have ahead of them. So I just think they weren't totally focused on that game the first time. But I think with the stakes tomorrow, they're going to come ready to play.
They were on that 3-game road trip, and they did not come home in between it at all. So I do agree that that play might have not been equated to what they are against a UTEP team. But UNT lost 62-75. Now, that being said, it was in El Paso. Don Haskins Arena is a very different environment to play in, and I think that could have played a big role in it, and I will feel the same way about the men's game tomorrow as well. Like, that's going to be an interesting game, but I just think that UNT didn't play their game like they know that they can, and it's just laziness.
And
you know,
UTEP couldn't miss either.
Yeah,
that
UTEP
game.
couldn't miss, but they put them on the line a bunch of times too. You don't want to, you know, they put them on the line 26 times. UTEP made 21 of 26 from the line. You can't be putting other teams on the line like that. And UNT didn't make free throws that well either. They shot 10 of 15. You can't give up that many points. It's just basic basketball. You have to play your game that you know you can play, and if they play in their system, they should beat this UTEP team.
Also, last time UTEP came in with this huge full court press that UNT really couldn't get out of, and it just was a mental problem, and it caused a lot of turnovers and a lot of second chance points for UTEP. So I mean, those are things you just got to be aware of and got to be able to break.
I think we saw UNT change the pace of the UTSA game last night to their own. And I think that they were playing at the pace of UTEP, or letting UTEP determine the tempo of the game when they last met up. So I think that UNT now knows better how to keep control of the game, and I would like to see them take control early, you know, force those long possessions, make the shot clock run out, have UTEP turn over the ball on themselves, because it's very possible.
And Michelle, I think the Mean Green are gonna be ready for this one. Just looking at everything as a fan, I love big dates with big stakes, and I think this one is definitely gonna be a very important one. Looking in, just in terms of their standings, they're only a game apart. Stop making me laugh. They're only a game apart for first, with Southern Miss at 9-7. They're being basically on the same record, but Southern Miss at 2, and then La Tech is at leading then. So with this game just being a game apart, it can really make something shake as far as where they can be in the CUSA tournament.
So, I mean, we need UNT really is in a scenario where they need to win this game, but they also, you know, have to look to Louisiana Tech and need Louisiana Tech to lose against UAB tomorrow. It's going to be a really good game, but not a situation you want to be in. Like I said, you have to focus on your game that you're going to play.
Just win this game and get the double bye, because I honestly think it might be better if they end up being the 2 seed, because with how the bracket is, the 2 seed plays the 1 seed out of the other division, which is Charlotte, who UNC only lost by 5 points to. Middle Tennessee, on the other hand, is second. We lost by like 30 points in that game. So I like our matchup better against Charlotte. So finishing second may actually be better for the tournament, but obviously going for a division title, you want to win the title. But being second wouldn't be the worst thing. So just win this game, you get a double bye in that tournament.
The key is winning the game and getting the double bye, because this team has not won in the first round of conference tournament in quite some time. And this would be a really good momentum builder, I think, for them to get a break, see those other teams play in the first round who they're going to be able to knock out possibly.
I mean,
And I want to dive deeper into what players think would be most important as far as matchup-wise for tomorrow.
Thurman and Jackson. Thurman for UTEP ended up having 30 points last time these two teams met. She ended up establishing herself as the top player on that team in this game, and it just was a huge momentum. And I think Jackson for UNT's really got to step up, and she's got to be the aggressive person that she is on both sides of the court. She ended up with 19 last time, and she led the team. And I really think her and Thurman is going to be an interesting game just to watch and see who just ends up doing better out of the two.
I've been talking a lot about the inside game with Mallard and Townley. I think this game comes down to the guards, like you said, because in that first matchup, 3 of UTEP's guards just went off. They were unconscious, like you said. Destiny Thurman had 30 points in that game, Aaron Wilson 15, and Avery Krause had 14. So you can't have 3 guards in double figures and one of them having 30 points. And I want Quincy to have a big game here, because she's one of those players, she gets in her own head. She starts getting frustrated so easily, especially in big games. So I want her to stay composed with a championship on the line and everything that's at stake. Stay composed. We'll get the crowd on her side going, and I think it's with the guard. So if UNT wins the guard matchup, they'll win this game.
Okay, so Justin is promising that the Mean Green Maniacs are going to bring really good vibes to the Super Pit tomorrow for this women's team.
There's a tailgate and everything going on tomorrow. This women's game is going to be awesome.
Look up all the game notes and find their first list.
The likelihood of UTEP shooting as good from the three-point line as UNT did from the free throw line the last matchup is not going to happen again. So despite us losing by 13 points last time, it's probably not going to happen again.
Yeah, it's just key for UNT to really shoot the ball well and not put them on the free throw line. You have to shoot the ball well, and you can't put them on the free throw line. Allie Gammas, her shot's looking right. Quincy Noble looked great last night. if all three of Quincy Noble, Ali Gomez, and Jazz Jackson could come out, put up double figures, we'll see, some contribution from Kendall Magruder, Maddie Townley. I mean, she loves that 10-foot mid-range. So I think if all these players can just come out here and play their game, shoot the ball well, it's your gym. There's no reason you shouldn't.
And real quick, let's check out the men's side. Do you think the idea of UNT now being a bubble team make this one a must-win game?
There's a lot more at stake than just the bubble here too, because this would not only extend the winning streak to be the already longest program winning streak, but even longer. You would break the record for most wins ever in CUSA in a season. And I think you would be the last undefeated team on the road too. And I think all three of those things really send a message to not only the committee, but also the country, the conference. Everyone knows North Texas now, especially if they win this game, because you have that 0 in the loss column, and no one else can say that in the country.
And in terms of net rankings, this helps because you're getting a win on the road at UTEP, who's a decent team this season. So it's going to help with that to, maybe punch a ticket for a possible at-large bid later on.
I mean, one thing with UTEP is they've got nothing to lose in this game. I mean, they can go out there and just give everything. It's kind of like what UTSA kind of did last night with Germany, and saying go out there and just play your game, do what you can. Because the truth is, if they win this game, it's the biggest game and upset in the conference. I mean, that makes the UAB Marshall game look like nothing. I mean, UTEP's a very elusive team, and I would be very worried if we had to play them again.
Well, the key here, too, is if you look back at the last time these two teams met, UNT beat them 66-58, but we saw UTEP kind of get shut down in that first half. Sully Boom did not do much in the first half of that game, and then it switched in that second half. UNT kind of slowed down on defending the transition D, let him take a couple more shots, drive the lane, and stuff like that. So they know that transition D is huge. You can't let them find their spots. I've been around the coaching staff when they're scouting on UTEP. So that is the key here, and I think that UNT knows that now. I'm not worried. Plus, they're going to be, it's going to be at Don Haskins, but I think that they're going to be that team that comes in and says, this isn't getting to us.
And UTEP isn't a fun team to play, and the word I would use to describe them is feisty. And they always come energized and try to just find a way to get things done. Like you said, Rachel, they're playing with nothing to lose. They're locked into that 4 spot in the East, which means we won't have to play them in the tournament, which is a good thing. But what I'm looking at with this game is the matchups. Like I said with Abu, they're a small ball team. They only play one forward. Tyus Verhoeven, he doesn't play that very many minutes at all. So I think the matchups in this game, like they were the first game against UTEP, are going to be there with either Abu or Thomas Bell. So I want Abu to have a big game down low. He had 17 points in that first UTEP game. So another big game from Abu, and I think it's smooth sailing in this
The
one.
best stretch that UTEP had against us when they came over here a couple weeks ago was to begin the second half, and Jamal Bienemy was a huge part of that for UTEP. So if we can contain Bienemy, because he's kind of leading the charge a lot for their offense, he kind of takes it and goes very frequently. So if we can contain him, that will really slow UTEP down.
He's the motor for this team. I mean, even when, he's being held and scoring, which isn't very often, he shares the ball really, really well. He doesn't let it really get into his head that he's maybe not making shots or not getting the opportunity to shoot the ball as much anymore, which makes him a big threat. That's a great point guard to have, a man that's willing to give up the ball when he knows it's not working for him.
I think another player to watch for UTEP, and he didn't play the last time we ended up playing them, was Keontae Kennedy. He had a great start to the season. He ended up having a foot injury, wasn't able to play for a lot of this season, but he was able to come back and help them win in the UAB game. And I mean, he's pretty scary. I mean, he's really their secret weapon. They haven't really had him all year. He makes their guards. That's just one more person to look out for. And I mean, there's Boom, there's Bienemy, and now there's Keontae Kennedy. And it's just going to be interesting to see how UNT's going to be able to match up on that. And I think it's kind of just a game of are our guards going to be able to handle that.
And real quick, before we head out, I want to take a look back at the women's team. Justin, give me your predictions for that game and what you think is going to happen and why.
I think the women get it done. I think, like I said, they know the stakes now. It's their senior day game. They're at home. The crowd's going to be going. Fans are going to be, pumped up because of the tailgate and everything that's going on. So I think they'll get it done. Hopefully La Tech loses and they can get that one spot. But I think they come ready to go. They don't have the road trip stuff that's going on with the matchup the last time. So they're coming in ready, and I think they get it done tomorrow.
I think UNT avenges their loss from earlier this season. I think they find a way to win.
I'm going to go with the same thing here. I think UNT is going to come in more focused than we've seen them. They almost lost a close one last night that they were not supposed to be anywhere near close with. So they're focused. They should come in here and win this game.
I'm going to go with UTEP. I think I'm a little worried about some of our players. I'm worried about the team as a whole just not being able to mesh and be able to team up. I'm a little worried about Thurman and a lot of the things that UTEP had been able to do. So I'm worried about the scouting report, essentially.
Rightfully so. But let's check out this men's game. Who do you think's gonna win? Do you think do we pull it out in El Paso?
Well, I have us pulling it out in El Paso. I'm from El Paso, actually. My parents went to UTEP, but I have us upsetting them all over Don Haskins Arena tomorrow night. They're going to be mad that UNT came to El Paso.
I go with UNT. They're incredible. They're on the hot streak, and they're playing for more than just themselves. They're playing for that conference winning record. I mean, it's up to them at this point.
Every time you talk to them, they say, we're not done yet.
No. Slow down the tempo, find the mismatches, and make your free throws. 12 of 26 from the line last night. UTSA is just out there hacking a boo intentionally. Teams are going to start intentionally fouling you if you shoot 12 of 26 from the line every night. But mismatches are going to be there. I think they find them, and I think UNT gets it done.
Mean Green stay undefeated on the road. UNT finds a way to win.
Takes Michelle's advice, make their free throws, and I think both teams, the men's going to pull out win number 16, the women, they're going to get a win and hopefully move up in the standings. Thanks for watching Mean Green Game Day, and stay tuned for next week's episode for the CUSA tournament. Until then, see you next time.